When it comes to game genres, I don't think there are many that are more contentious than the roguelike. JRPGs may be hated by like 50% of gaming YouTubers for some reason, but even that often pales in comparison to the sheer indifference people feel towards your average roguish indie. Some people genuinely dislike them, some people just don't think they sound fun as a concept, or maybe they just experience the sheer confusion of trying to play The Binding of Isaac without having the wiki open 24/7 and just kinda gave up. But if you sleep on roguelikes, you're missing out on a genre that's currently going through the ultimate renaissance. Like, I've been playing the game this video is about after putting exactly 185 hours into Hades. So I might have a problem. The gameplay loop of slowly getting stronger and stronger, learning new strategies, unlocking new pathways and weapons, slowly making your way to the end. It's one of a kind. Sure, every time you die, you gotta go back to the beginning, but you're always making progress. It's like a fighting game or a classic arcade game. When you lose, you have to start over, but the real progress is in your brain hole. Also, in the case of this genre, hundreds of permanent unlocks. Just throw yourself back at it and get better. And when you finally succeed, it's one of the most gratifying experiences in gaming. Personally, I'm a bit of a fan. And hey, speaking of gratifying, hello everybody, and welcome to the Hidden Chest. And this is Dead Cells. Not only is it a roguelike, but it's one of those games. The type I would compare to Dark Souls if I had no writing talent. So yeah, it's a lot like Dark Souls. It'll wring your non-existent spectral neck and you'll love every second of it. A 2D brawler where every action counts. If you're gonna survive this medieval alchemical zombie apocalypse nightmare island, you'll need to utilize an entire ecosystem of intermingling mechanics that you can adapt to any given situation. Dodge rolls, parries, limited health flasks, and like a billion other things I'm gonna bring up in the coming 10 minutes. The combat here is absolutely visceral, and it's all amplified by amazing animations, sound design, and visual effects. It really makes you feel like you're pummeling a walking corpse with your bare hands. Haha, that's 2 jokes at the expense of the language used in game reviews. God. From a replayability standpoint, it never gets old, which is good because you'll be replaying this game a lot. For example, when it comes to variety, if I showed you the sheer amount of weapons you can get, it'd blow your mind. Each one is super unique and requires a different playstyle. There's a frying pan, a sword to let you animate people to death, a crossbow that shoots exploding bolts, but you can also hit people directly with the crossbow and it still explodes for some reason, tentacles, ice magic, slime turrets, war fans, Telsa coils, buzzsaws, Castlevania, Half-Life. That's it! I'm getting me mallet! I could literally go on for like 30 minutes, and I am very tempted to. Almost every weapon has its own conditions where it'll crit, and each individual weapon you find in a run has its own set of modifiers that can be re-rolled between areas. And even beyond all of that, there are over 50 mutations that act as perks that even further modify how you play. Also, there are a bunch of alternate costumes. Wow! Basically, what I'm saying is that there's a lot going on here. You have so many options at your disposal to screw around with, and experimenting with it all is incredibly fun. Of course, all that being said, the game is still hard as nails, even by roguelike standards. It's a high-risk, high-reward murder fest the whole way through, so I'd very much recommend it for the sweatiest of gamers. Your health pool is never that high, so if you get caught off guard and aren't at 100%, you could easily just die. Now, you could go for a well-rounded high health playthrough, but real Chads go for the glass cannon route and spec everything into one of the game's damage types. It works every time except for when it kills you. There are a lot of instances where you can get crazy loot, but you get cursed if you do it, and then you have to kill a bunch of enemies afterwards without getting hit, or you eat it instantly. Some weapon modifiers make it so that you inflict double or even triple damage on enemies, or sap health on every attack. But in turn, you take double or triple damage yourself. Oh, and the cursed sword. I've made a vow never to talk about that thing again. It's the Call of the Void. Oh yeah, and after every area, there are even loot stashes that don't unlock unless you speedrun everything or beat a ton of enemies in a row without taking a hit. Risk versus reward is the name of the game here, and said game does not mess around. Even after you've beaten it for the first time, the pain doesn't end. You unlock a harder difficulty mode, and then after beating that, you get an even harder difficulty mode, and then after that, it just keeps happening. Upping the ante over and over. Less health refilling stations, new enemies in each area. Oh, would you look at that? I've caught the plague. One stupid mistake could end everything if you aren't careful. But every time you try, you get a little closer. Learn more patterns, unlock more items, upgrade the forge, and eventually you'll trash the game and become king of this filthy island. Well, I'd say filthy, and yeah, this island is covered in toxic waste, dilapidated buildings, parasites, blood, and just so many corpses, inanimate or otherwise. But can I just say that this game looks absolutely gorgeous? It mixes 3D characters into a pixelated world so seamlessly that you could barely even notice without looking very closely. That's how they were able to add like 50 million weapons with unique animations and like 50 million more alternate costumes. It's stylish and functional. Of course, the pixel art world is no slouch either. I mean, just look at it. Even though the island is a grimdark hellscape of misery, the color here is just astonishing. Each area has its own distinct feel because of it. The gloomy, decaying ambience of the prison, the glowing red terror of the ossuary, the lush greens of the arboretum. Each area has its own style, color scheme, and atmosphere, and just runs with it. The music fits these perfectly as well. I honestly wouldn't say they're the type of songs I would put on headphones and jam out to, but they fit their respective biomes and the game's atmosphere so well that I hardly care. The lore, similarly, is subtle in its approach. You start the game knowing literally nothing and kinda just have to piece it all together as you go along. It's successful in a lot of ways, but certainly could have been better in others. Like, you get a large chunk of the lore in this game from loading screens and randomly spawning lore rooms, but after a while you kinda stop running into new information even though you desperately want to learn more. It basically becomes dead air until about difficulty level 5, which is aptly named Hell. Yes, that's the name of the difficulty, and you may never even get that far. It gives you something to work towards, and it's totally doable if you put in the time, but still. The lore rooms especially could use some ironing out. There aren't a whole lot of them, and since you replay the game so often, rooms and your character's reaction to said rooms repeat constantly. 100 hours in, and No Head McDies-a-lot will still be quipping about the same dead-end prison cells, and utterly befuddled about the pile of his own corpses. Like, come on, dude, get over yourself. Literally, that's the joke. It's literal, get it? Because he's getting over himself. It's his own dead bodies. God! The main character is pretty dang funny and well animated, and the world and lore are incredibly interesting. But I feel like maybe it could have been delivered better. I'd really like to see more options for lore rooms, and maybe even a compendium at some point. A place to keep track of and learn about all the lore, enemies, and weapons you encounter would be amazing. Like, what the heck is up with the samurai crab? I'd love to know. And it's not much of a stretch to say that features like that could very well still be added. The title has gotten and is still getting lots of support, often heavily based on community feedback. The amount of options, modes, and customization available is pretty bonkers. There's seed sharing, custom modes, daily challenges, and a ton of settings. You want to replace the soundtrack with a retro version? You can do that. There are currently 8 different options for how you want the food pickups to look. I use the cheese one. I also really love the ability to automatically equip a random costume on every playthrough. Meanwhile, custom modes were a godsend for getting weapon footage for the video, and it's always fun to try out the action-packed daily challenges. But even all of that is just the minor stuff. The DLC releases take all the variety I've been gushing about and amplify it to the nth degree. And free updates with balance changes based on community feedback have been pretty consistent. The latest update rebalanced the difficulty modes to be a bit more manageable and added a load of new quality of life features. Also a big Unga Bunga club. Now, as I've said before, this game isn't for everyone. You've probably already picked up on that. But for a specific type of person, this might just end up being one of your favorite games ever. What it does well, it does incredibly well, and besides the potential frustration from dying all the time, and some minor gripes about how lore is distributed, there's not much I can say is wrong with this game. All in all, I managed to get it with all the DLC for like $20 on sale, which is an absolute steal. And as far as I can tell, the Nintendo Switch version I played doesn't have any performance issues or visual downgrades to speak of, portable or otherwise. It's an astonishingly polished game, and one that I can't wait to see the future of. Plus, the developer Motion Twin is a hierarchy-free workers' cooperative, and personally, I think ethical business structures are pretty poggers. Anyways, buy this zombie murder game, it'll make you cry, and I think that's very funny. Bye!